Hi, my name is Belinda Perez.
And I'm Courtney Fellion. Thank you for joining our presentation of Abel Ferrara's 1981 film, Ms. 45. In the 4 decades since its initial release, Ms. 45 has earned a reputation as a feminist cult classic. Ms. 45 is a film that wouldn't necessarily fall in the category of high cinema like many of the films presented in this series, but we believe that it is a complicated film worth studying.
What is a rape revenge film? Commonly associated with horror films from the United States in the 1970s, in her book, Rape Revenge Films, A Critical Study, film critic Alexander Heller Nicholas states, quote, "A rape revenge film must most immediately feature both a rape, or many rapes, or an attempted rape, and an act of revenge. At its most basic level, a rape revenge film is one whereby a rape that is central to the narrative is punished by an act of vengeance, either by the victim themselves or by an agent, a lawyer, a policeman, or most commonly, a loved one or family member." In her pioneering study of slasher and horror films, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film, academic and cultural critic Carol J. Clover points out that the rise of the rape revenge film in the 1970s coincided with rape and sexual violence being taken seriously as a social issue. While nearly all rape revenge films follow some variation of this formula, they are not monolithic. Ms. 45 itself follows and also deviates from the tropes of the genre, in that Thana, our protagonist, whose name can be interpreted as the feminine form of the Greek word for death, is a mute garment worker who seeks revenge against not only the men who raped her, but men in general. And the ending of the film also subverts the genre. Some film scholars trace the beginning of the rape revenge genre in cinema to Ingmar Bergman's Academy Award-winning 1961 film, The Virgin Spring. Set in medieval Sweden, The Virgin Spring centers on the rape and murder of a young girl and her father's subsequent revenge on her attackers. But while the rape revenge genre arguably did not reach its zenith until the 1970s, many films have used aspects of it in their narratives well before The Virgin Spring. In particular, I would recommend 1950's Outrage and 1961's Something Wild as films which provide a realistic depiction of what it means to survive rape.
And it's unclear whether Ferrara set out to make a rape revenge film in the first place, since Ms. 45 is a follow-up to his first narrative feature film, The Driller Killer, a black comedy B-movie horror film depicting an artist's mental decline into a murderous rampage. It is worth pointing out that the murderer artist is played by the director himself. Ferrara also notably cast himself as the first rapist in Ms. 45, and many fans have noted that he may in fact be the same character as in The Driller Killer because he wears similar makeup underneath his mask at the conclusion of that earlier film. Ferrara's decision to cast himself in this controversial role is an interesting decision. For one, it connects the narrative universe of The Driller Killer with Ms. 45, that of pre-Giuliani New York, where the very fact of poverty is as much an explanation of urban crime as it is an indictment of society. It is also possible, as Heller Nicholas suggests, that Ferrara casting himself is a, quote, conscious acknowledgement of the moral culpability of the director of rape revenge films more broadly. And the rape scenes in this film, unlike many rape revenge films that are lensed by male directors, are uncomfortable and unfetishized. There's an awkward silence that lingers, a closer cinematography that places the spectator inside of the trauma. Since Thana is mute, her agony is expressed through her face alone, almost like a silent cinema star. The film's enigmatic star, Zoe Tamerlise Lund, adds further intrigue to the production history of this film. While she is credited under her maiden name Tamerlise in Ms. 45, she's widely known by her married name Lund, which is how we refer to her during the remainder of this presentation.
In an interview about Ms. 45, Abel Ferrara said about the film star Zoe Lund, quote, "She didn't write Ms. 45, and I think I directed it, but without her, we have no movie." A sample sentence from the Wikipedia entry on Lund, quote, "In 1986, she started dating her future husband, Robert Lund. They lived together in an apartment located on 10th Street, and according to Paul Rackman, the Lunds reportedly owned dozens of roaming pet rats. The couple were married on October 31st, 1986, at the New York City Municipal Building with one witness in attendance, their friend Lenny Ferrari. That same year, Lund got an abortion. Lund made her film debut with this film at only 17 years old. A child musical prodigy, after Ms. 45, Lund continued to work in film, as well as in fashion and writing. She would go on to work with Ferrara on several of his subsequent films, most notably 1992's Bad Lieutenant, whose screenplay she co-wrote with Ferrara. Before her death in 1999, at the age of 37, Lund wrote about Ms. 45's reputation as a feminist rape revenge film in her 1993 essay, The Ship with 8 Sails and with 50 Black Cannon. Quote, "My character, Thana, became a double rape victim and then a violent avenger, speaking with her gun. Journalists often say, 'Oh, what a feminist film. Ms. 45 presents a terrific metaphor for women's empowerment. Tell us all about it.' I used to explain. Now I groan, quietly, and then explain. No, Ms. 45 is not about women's liberation, any more than it is about mutes' liberation or garment workers' liberation. The character was oppressor. Or your liberation or my own. Notice that her climactic victim is not a rapist in the clinical sense. He is her boss, the real rapist, our real rapist. I usually add something about the fact that I myself was raped in that very clinical sense, but more about that later." Much of Lund's writing is collected at zoelund.com, a website maintained by her husband, Robert Lund, a website we would recommend perusing if you have any interest in Lund.
And in the film, Thana's final revenge scene is complicated and undermined by the simple gender categories that second-wave feminists use to militarize their cause. Thana can't easily discern between who is a man and who is a woman at a costume party. As the conclusion suggests, it is this binary that eventually leads to her demise and gives the film its radical political edge. Unfortunately, the film was initially self-distributed before landing among grindhouse and porn theaters in New York's 42nd Street neighborhood, ironically playing to the same misogynist type audiences that the film is critiquing. Ferrara and Lund were both horrified by the audience's gross reaction to these initial screenings. Ms. 45's distribution among the B-movie, horror, and rape revenge films can be blamed for the lack of critical acclaim for this film. The film was only available for many years in a highly censored version before Drafthouse Films re-released an uncut version in 2013 to much acclaim.
The most recent example of the rape revenge genre in cinema won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay at this year's Oscars. I am referring, of course, to the film Promising Young Woman. Promising Young Woman has been praised for, among other things, being a rape revenge film that does not depict scenes of sexual violence. In fact, the film goes so far as to punish women characters instead of the actual rapists. Unlike Ms. 45, in Promising Young Woman, the rape which ignites the plot happens off-screen, and to the best friend of the protagonist instead of the protagonist herself. Thanks to a partnership with the RAIN Foundation, the film will be toured across college campuses to continue this critical dialogue. As we mentioned, the rape scenes in Ms. 45 are uncomfortable to watch, with the camera angled in close up on the face of Thana as she is violated. This film depicts trauma directly and offers no fake catharsis. While we understand that the experience of watching this kind of film in a group setting may be uncomfortable, Ms. 45 offers excitement and catharsis to an audience willing to witness.
Thank you for joining us.